What is up, podheads? Back with another episode of the Podioslave podcast. My name is Tony, joined as always by Anthony, and we have a new, fresh face in the house this evening. Kevin Kennie, how you doing?
Hey guys, I'm good, thank you.
And I'm good too. Thanks for asking, Tony.
I didn't ask. My wife told me to stop asking how you're doing, so I'm done. No more.
So Kevin, that's a legacy joke because Tony used to always ask how we're doing, me and when Nate was with us, and it'd always be like, okay, and it was like the most boring shit ever.
Yeah, she's like, stop asking. Just jump into something else. I've been trying to come up with something a little more, fun. So fresh face, Kevin in the house.
So Kevin, we've known of you for years and years. We get so many mutual friends, but we hadn't met until recently. And so for those that don't know, Kevin, you are a Mainer, been involved in the Maine music scene for 25 plus years, been in bands. Correct me if anything's wrong here. Producer, musician, collaborator to brand name, a lot of household names. And I could go on podcaster, all the above. What else?
I mean, that's it. I've just been around the local music scene. I ran into some guys in a band called Rustic Overtones when I was like 12 years old. And funnily enough, that's what I wanted to do, is be in a band and hear a bunch of high school dudes on their front porch. And I was like, well, fuck, I didn't know you could actually do that. I thought you had to be like Bret Michaels and John Bon Jovi. Well, this is great news to me.
Right?
But over the years, we're very lucky. Maine's had everything from a supportive local radio station in WCYY, a supportive local retailer in Bull Moose. So all those. And it used to have a very robust and supportive local club scene for all ages and any brand, any level of talent band you could get out there and play. So yeah, been around, and yeah, I guess I've accomplished something, but it's been super fun. Very lucky.
Well, we obviously a big part of what we do and have been music fans all this time is because of places like WCOY and Bull Moose, and getting to go to some of those shows like the Big Easy or Port City Music Hall, or stuff. Just finding Geno's, finding local music at these shows. And it's funny, we never ran into you until fairly recently. I know I met you at the Used show this summer. Rob, our mutual friend Rob, introduced us, and I was like, I've heard a ton about Kevin. I've just never actually laid eyes on him. And now we're doing a podcast, all 4 months later, or 3 months later, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's what we do now. We podcast,
Yes.
Even before the pandemic, I think I was creeping that way. It's a lot to be out there and to be doing that stuff. And you just get old, and I have gotten old. Mm-hmm. So it's terrible news.
Well, this is hanging out to me. Like, I'm not going to leave the house, and it's Thursday night, the kids are fingers crossed sleeping. I mean, what am I going to do? So we've been doing this for what? 200, almost two, this will be 234? 35.
Yeah, right around
35
there.
episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys started this podcast, I think, the same time that I started, or me and some friends started the horror movie podcast.
So
2020.
promote that. Drop that.
Drop that.
Sure. So the only consistent thing I do, I guess artistically, is a horror movie podcast called Speak All Evil. And that's with my friends Trent Gay, who's been around the local music scene for a long time, our friend Kat Smith, and Dave Gutter from Paranoid Social Club, Rustic Overtones, local heavyweight there. We all love horror movies, so we get together weekly, same as you guys, and we drop episodes on Tuesday. So that's Speak All Evil. And it's just a very not safe for work and super fun horror movie podcast where we torture each other with picks every week. And you can always, if there's an episode where in the beginning of the episode we say that Kat's not here, you're about to hear about some really fucked up movies.
Well, speaking of
Nice.
that, I feel like I'm like always just always cleaning my basement. Anyway, I have like my last holdout of DVDs, and I'm going through it. I'm like, all right, I don't need Fight Club. I can get it on streaming, all this. Well, there's one horror movie I hung on to, Dead Alive.
Oh, Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson.
There you
Yeah.
go.
And I'm like, I don't think I can find this. Maybe I know there's like a horror streaming thing, but I hung on to that one.
It's tough. I think it is streaming right now, but it comes in and out. You can always find it free on YouTube in various levels of quality, but it's funny. The first like 6 months of our podcast, I think Trent, if any of us said Peter Jackson again, Trent was going to kill us all live on an episode. I mean, that guy is a legend. Those early Jackson movies would never, ever make you think that he's going to go on to do the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I mean, it's
crazy.
super wild.
Yeah.
And I have a good horror movie tie-in to the album we're talking about this week. I think it'll surprise you guys.
All right, I like that. So, yeah, so go subscribe to Speak No Evil.
Speak All Evil.
Sorry.
Hey, I get it. There's a Speak No Evil movie coming out September 13th. So
yeah, I'll leave that in. Fuck it. I fucked up, everybody. Yeah. Go subscribe to Speak All Evil if that's your bag. And yeah, we're excited to dive into Green Day's American Idiot tonight, which
boom.
This is going to come out a couple of days before its 20th birthday, which is insane to me. It's 20 years old. September 21st, 2004.
I remember where it was when it came out, all that. Yeah.
Where were you, Twan? Tell us about it.
I was a sophomore in college, right? It was the beginning of sophomore year at college. I was living down in Massachusetts. And at this point in time, like I don't know that I was actively following Green Day at that point. Like, you know, we always talk about a band's stair steps, right? Their stair steps, Dookie.
No, you always talk about a band's stair steps.
The stair steps led to this, but I honestly, I think I was out after the Nimrod warning era, you know, a little bit, I think. So this came out, American Idiot drops and all that. And I remember that I worked for my college radio station. It even took college radio by storm. I mean, obviously COI, they were pimping it. I mean, Green Day's a legacy alt rock, you know, punk rock band that would play in you know, in those cycles. But this like transcended everything. And we'll get into all the singles and all that stuff. But yeah, I was down at college. I was probably what, 19? Yeah. I had kind of graduated from them, but this pulled me back. Green Day. Billy Joe's like, come back in, man. We need you.
Just when I think I'm out.
Yep. How do you feel about a rock opera? Huh? Kevin, what about you, man? First memories.
Of this album?
Yeah.
This is wild because the week this album came out, Head Start was in New York City doing showcases for major labels. No joke.
Wow.
Context is key. Head Start was Kevin's pop punk. You call it pop punk, right? Pop
sure,
punk
yeah.
band.
Yeah, that's a safe description. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, look at me just assuming that everybody knows.
Everybody knows who Head Start is, right?
This local band that had a couple marginal successful songs on Portland, Maine radio. But yeah, so my band at the time we had great management. We had great representation across the board. Early aughts was still like old school band platform. You were still showcasing for labels. You were still trying to get a budget for your record and put out a physical CD. So we were down there as I was like 24. And yeah, we were in New York City doing pay for play at like 6 p.m. at bars where you buy like $100 worth of drink tickets so you can play for 30 minutes before the real show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had no idea that this album was even out until like later in that year. And like you, Anthony, I completely missed both Nimrod and Insomniac. I had no idea. I was out after Dookie.
Insomniac. Wow.
So when American Idiot came out, I was blown away, like absolutely blown away. And I'm a pretty bad guitar player. And so I was even more excited that after like 2 listens, I could play the entire album on the guitar.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I remember I loved Insomniac, and then Nimrod I liked half of. And I've recently, my buddy, one of my actually former students who I had as a college student texted me and was like, rate these 4 albums, and it was like Dookie, Nimrod, Insomniac, and Warning. And I had Nimrod last because I was like, I like Warning better, but Warning also is another one. It's like, this isn't the Green Day I grew up with, the Dookie over my shoulder here. So I was like, I don't know, maybe I'm out on these guys. And they pulled me back in with American Idiot too, because it was just a completely different vibe than what they had been, careening towards, that kind of folk punk world that did not fit Green Day, right?
I'm grown up now. Warning comes and like we're grown now, so if you like that other shit, although There were hints of that. There were stair steps to that on
Stair steps, yep.
on Nimrod.
This is the Stair Steps podcast with Tony and Anthony. But you're right. And there are songs on Warning that are really good. Some of my favorite lyrics from Green Day are on Warning, but it's not the same. It's not what drew me into the band. This wasn't either, but it was different, and it drew me back into the band.
Yeah, I was, Warning I missed too. I knew, obviously, Minority and Warning, and I thought they were a little, like, goofy. Like, what are you doing? But, what was super fun about American Idiot is, it blew me away. I was all into concept albums at the time, so I was ripe for something like this. And then I went backwards, and I discovered, we all knew, like, Brain Stew and Jaded, because it was the highly anticipated first single after Dookie. But, like, I missed, like, Nice Guys Finish Last, Hitchin' a Ride, The Grouch, Redundant, Worry Rock. Good. I mean, we all knew Good Riddance. I'd be a liar if I said I didn't know that one. And then songs like Waiting and Macy's Day Parade. So, like, American Idiot not only really got me back into Green Day, but then all of a sudden it was like, holy crap, they have a greatest hits worth of songs that I completely missed over the last decade.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
Hey, let's not forget the Angus soundtrack. Was it Jar?
Oh, Jar. I love Jar. Jar is a top 5 Green Day song.
Amazing song.
Was that post Dookie, pre-Insomniac?
Or right around Insomniac.
Yeah,
Okay.
It might have been written in, like, the Dookie session. Mike Dirnt wrote that song.
Oh, wow.
Well, Mike Dirnt.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a hot take, but I think he's the musical, like, heart of the band. I think most of the things that you like from them follow the bass line or follow what's going on with the bass, and you're like, wow, there's a lot here, man. Like, he's really good.
No, it's not a hot take at all. I mean, Green Day and Blink are examples of bands that would be considerably worse without an awesome drummer and a very melodic bass player. And I know that Tom and Mark kind of share vocals like it, but Dirt's got those harmonies, very melodic bass lines and everything. And Billy Joe is obviously great, rock star, but I mean, neither of them would be anything without their rhythm section.
Yeah, and having a great frontman, or in Blink's case, 2 frontmen that play off each other well.
Blink's, not to go on a Blink tangent, but Blink's one of those rare situations where you can actually, like, tell what the band would be without certain members, because they had those eras, the pre-Travis, and then as Rob, we love you, as Rob would say, Matt Skee-Ball. The Matt Skee-Ball era.
Yeah. Well, and then the records, the Plus 44 record without Tom, and the Boxcar Racer without Mark, like, they did it all, right? And the Transplants without both of them.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah.
Tangent. Yep. But yeah, this record pulled me back in for sure, and it was just so damn catchy and well done. And it wasn't like why I liked Green Day when I was 10. At 20 years old, I'm like, all right, they're singing about stuff that's happening in the news around us, right? I mean, the Iraq War, 9/11, all that stuff was kind of fodder for some of the big songs on the record, American Idiot and Holiday. And it was, I was starting to find myself in college and paying attention to the news, because you didn't do that when you were 11. You do it when you be an adult. So this one definitely kind of pulled me back in with that stuff and having an opinion about things. And we're not going to get super political, I don't think, but it was certainly part of what was going on at the time.
Was it though?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was for me for sure. Yeah, but that's not why I liked this record. I actually still to this day really don't like Holiday. And I'm going to blame CYY a little bit for that. Like that, That's like on the level of like Alice in Chains Rooster of like songs that I'd love to somehow get in a race from CYY's entire archive. But I felt like every time I turned on CYY, Holiday was playing. But to go to your political point, like Holiday was almost the song for me that was like, okay, I can go listen to like Bad Religion or something if I want this vibe, this tempo, this like shuffle, and my politics. Like they've been doing it for 20 something years, much better. And it was a little bit hokey. Like the thing about American Idiot, and I know you just said, Tony, you don't want to get political, but like, we're living in the same era right now. Like
absolutely,
this album could come out and Billy Joe could sub the George W. mask for Trump, and boom, album is still applicable. So that's depressing.
Well, and it was the redneck agenda then. It's the MAGA agenda now. He said it last night in Detroit.
That's right.
Yeah, amazing.
It's still a thing.
But the one of the few dating that I love albums that don't feel dated, and I don't think that this one does because of the production. And there are some like more emotional aspects and like vague lyrical storytelling that always comes with the concept. But like the Governor of California and some of the stuff in Holiday felt like way too timely for me. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox about one song on an unbelievable album.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I said, maybe it wasn't what was going on. I mean, certainly politically, like what he's narrating is happening, but musically in their world, what was going on? I mean, you had pop punk was popping off, right? NFG's Catalyst. At this point, we were like a year removed from Blink's, masterpiece. You had Good Charlotte with, I forget that album, but then you get like My Chem, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, so then you're kind of layering in like the Hot Topic optics, right?
Yeah.
we'll probably talk about that because there's a branding
did you
shift.
Say Hot Topics?
Yes, that works. Yeah.
But I don't think what we had ever seen up until this point was the whole rock opera, and as I call it, arena punk. I mean, they were arena punk, obviously up to this point, but the rock opera was interesting. Like I feel like they leaned into that, and either you're in or you're out, and obviously a shitload of people were in, but
the rock opera had been done, but not by a pop punk band, really, right? To this level, anyway. Probably not. Maybe if it had happened, we didn't hear about it, or it wasn't as big as American Idiot ended up getting. I do think that they were in search of a new identity because what they were doing wasn't hitting with anybody anymore. and really what they've done since hasn't really hit to that level either, right? I mean, they put out 21st Century Breakdown after and, kept going. And we can talk about that in a little bit. But this is, without this, do they just fade away? And today we're like, oh yeah, I remember Green Day being huge in the 90s, and then they just kind of disappeared.
I mean, I want to be careful. Like, we're talking about Warning still sold something like 2.3 million records. It's not like they put it out and there were riots in the streets and it sold like 25 copies. Okay. Like, but when you get to Dookie standards, and this was still at a time you could drop a physical album and you're expected to push like 250,000 in your first week. But I do find it interesting. You guys are probably like, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, you guys can correct me. I think you're the right people here. Are we coming off of like new metal at this point? Are we coming off of like big guitars? Is that dying down by 04?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. You get the bands and you get like the post-hardcore emo swing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they come out with a Green Day record that is got serious elements of a band that is now 10 years removed. They basically gave us a concept album about Welcome to Paradise with almost early aughts like new metal guitars in some of it. This huge production, and then like the concept album swing. I mean, it was really ballsy. And then there's the whole story about they were recording a record and someone stole the tapes. I don't buy that for a
Cigarettes and Valentine's, right?
I don't buy that for
Isn't
a second. I think they wrote a bunch of shitty songs and they're like, let's say someone stole it.
Yeah, this isn't that good.
So I don't know if you knew, but those songs ended up being Revolution Radio. No, I'm just kidding.
Uno dos tres.
But yeah, like that. Actually, as a production head, Kevin, to me, when I listen to this is fucking the biggest production like ever. But the irony is, it's the same dude. Rob Cavallo? He did everything from Dookie, I think, all the way through. So there was a clear intention with this. The optics of the band, the rock opera, and I mean, they pulled it off. But it's interesting that because typically with a shift like this, they would have changed producers and all this stuff, but they didn't.
Yeah, and this is like Pro Tools is banging by this point, like really got tested in like the late 90s. You had like Howard Benson and some big producers that were toying around with Pro Tools. Now you've got this crazy new way. So you've got guys like Rob Cavallo that know how to mix the old school method of recording a band in a room with this remarkable editing, program that just lets you rip through things. And I mean, this is a time when labels were still dumping money into records. Like they say the budget for this was $650K. I call bullshit. I think this is easily over $1 million. Yeah. And I bet it was $650K is like post Cigarettes and Valentines. I'd love to know what the tab was for that. But yeah, huge drums, huge guitars. A lot of really cool production techniques. And I mean, I'm making it sound like it's this big like metal or new metal record, but also like a ton of dynamics and callbacks to different sounds. Green Day toyed with things like that on everything after Dookie, certainly on Warning, but this one they're doing it within the same songs, and it works somehow.
Yep.
Like dynamically, it was astounding.
Yeah, you're gonna get a 9-minute song like Jesus of Suburbia, and it's got 5 different parts, and you're like, okay, I'm along for this ride. And you think maybe you're into a new song, and you look down, no, it's still the same song, and it's still awesome. Like I could put that song on today and have no problem listening to it from start to finish and being happy with it. Like that's hard to do. In 2004, it was hard to do. It's harder to do today, I think, because of people's attention and attention spans. But even in 2004, people's attention spans sucked, and a 9-minute song is going to be tough to kind of force on people, but they liked it. And the song has got a ton of spans.
That makes me realize how big of a gamble this was, because imagine a 9-minute fucking song is on Insomniac. I mean, like, no, like I just,
right.
There's no return from 86, man. Give me more of that shit. You know?
Yeah, is it the secret song with like 8 minutes of nothing? Because that would work.
Hidden tracks. I was so jealous of that song. An entire album will get me if it has like 2 or 3 songs that I wish I'd written. And like, not only is it my jam, but I'm like, God damn it, why didn't I think of that?
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus of Suburbia, I could listen to that every day, all day. I could go put it on repeat right now and be eternally happy for the rest of my life. It's so good, and it's so simple. It's so simple.
So simple.
But
and Holiday is, you already mentioned it. Holiday, that is the most basic fucking song on the planet. Like the guitar, I'm not a guitarist. I can play power chords. I could play that. I could find the tabs and play it tomorrow.
Yeah. But like with that sound, and it took him forever to write the lyrics, I read, and he just didn't like it. There's the 20th anniversary that they're putting out this massive box set. It's got a bunch of stuff, and I listened to a little of that, what's been released to this point, and there was a demo of that and Boulevard, and it doesn't have the big roomness that you end up getting and that you've heard on the radio a million times since, but it's you're right. It was built for stadiums, and were they playing stadiums going into this? I can't remember.
So I looked this up.
Okay.
I did my due diligence here.
Thank you.
Nice.
So Pop Disaster Tour with Blink was 2002, and they were playing some fucking big boy venues.
Nice.
And yeah, like they played Tweeter Center. That played Tweeter. So that, and I looked up the capacity. I was doing a deep dive. It's like 19,000 there. And then for this tour in 2005, like I know that they played the Civic Center. I mean, I know we're a smaller market.
I was there. Yep.
There you go.
With Nate. And then again in the fall at Gillette. So that show
and
too.
there you go. So you can see did they headline that?
They did, yep.
Woo! That's the thing, is I wasn't convinced it was a level up. I looked pre this album, post this album, but I only looked at that first tour. You expand it out, expand the lens a little bit. 2005, 2006, they're playing Gillette. Would they have played Gillette off Warning? No way.
No
Not
way.
a chance.
No way. No, I was there at the Civic Center. Blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind.
Were you there for all of it? Because I came in late and missed My Chem, and I've had tickets to shows where My Chemical Romance opened and missed them both times because I'm a dumbass.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, so I didn't know a lot about My Chem because, I'm a little older, so it was probably about 7, 8, 9 years younger than me that they all had like, I Brought You My Bullets, whatever their first one was. They knew about that. I don't know, Pure Volume, MySpace, whatever. So I didn't know because it's weird. My Chem dropped 3 Cheers in like April of that year or June of that year, but they didn't put out I'm Not Okay as a single until the month that American Idiot came out. It's a strange strategy to drop an album before the single comes out. So I went with actually all of the guys in my band, and nobody knew who the opener was or anything. I think maybe I knew that like Burt McCracken liked them or had sang on a song or something, and that was about the extent of it. And maybe, I don't know if like Feldman had done the Under Pressure remake with My Chem and the Used at that point, but No, I think maybe we caught like a song or two, but
Same.
I was so fixated on Green Day and
Hmm.
how they were going to do it because again, I only remember them as like a teenager in the 90s, and my lasting memory of them is the Woodstock, like the mud fight and
Yep.
everything. And at that
Yep.
point, Billy Joe was great, but he wasn't running around like a maniac. I was not prepared for the ascended rock star version of Billy Joe Armstrong on the American Idiot tour, and I was blown away. Like
The
just
eyeliner, the suit, the whole
The
thing.
King for a Day stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, just running around the stage, his command. I mean, he always sounds great. He doesn't, he doesn't have like a Bono voice, so he could pull this off every night. He's not like Adam Lazzara. He doesn't have to like be perfect. He's got this his voice is his wheelhouse. It's brilliant, but his showmanship at that show, that to me, coupled with the album, was just like, holy shit, these guys just went from definitely a legacy band, a legend from Dookie and some hits after that, but this just brought them to the next level. They have gotten to like they and Blink are at least 1 and 2 on the pop punk Mount Rushmore, and no one's taken their place.
It's funny you say that. I was just scrolling through my phone. It was actually today. In the iPhone, you can search keywords and it'll find. I was actually looking for something to post to our social media today, and I happened to come across Tony when we did the episode with Nate up at his camp, looking through his old magazines.
Yep.
And right after American Idiot dropped, Billy Joe's on the cover of Rolling Stone by himself. Like
Yep.
he's propped up, just as you're saying. He was an icon, and I think any time before this, if they were on the cover of a big magazine, it would have been the three of them. But this,
Yep.
Billy Joe is the face at this point.
A lot of it was the aesthetic change, right? Putting on the black and the red ties and the guy liner, as it were, and becoming this kind of different band for this album and beyond. Because I still think they're that band. They're the band from American Idiot to this point in 2024, which is funny because of what they were before. Like their first act was pretty damn good. Like Dookie was massive. Insomniac did pretty well, and stuff after did pretty well. But to completely kind of change what they were aesthetically, put Billy Joe up front, have him be this kind of crazy man running around stage, and also, yeah, there he is. Twan's holding up the Rolling Stone cover.
I remember that. I totally remember that now.
Yeah, it's wild to turn into that after the fact. Like this doesn't happen to bands once, let alone twice, and they were able to pull it off twice and still be this, like you said, Kevin, 1A, 1B, Blink, Green Day, Blink, or whatever your preference is. They're both, two of the bands on Mount Rushmore as far as pop punk goes.
Yeah, this was Rolling Stone from November 2025. 2005. So at this point, I think they were still releasing singles. I don't have the wiki pulled up, but I think they were releasing signals for a year. And the title of the header of the cover says "The Defiant One, Billy Joe versus the World."
One. Yeah, okay.
Are you ready for this? Green Day's frontman finds his inner rock god. It reads like a National Enquirer.
Yeah,
Bad boy escapes from cavern or something.
Jesus of Suburbia came out November of 2005 as a single. So yeah, you're right. A year later.
If it was National Enquirer, it would have been something like, "Where is Trey Cool and Mike Dirnt?" Like sources say Billy Joe ate them.
He's back at Gilman Street venue with the Aquabats or something. I don't know.
Speaking of Travis Barker, the Aquabat.
Yeah. So you're right. It's cool that it happened, that he kind of ascended as this one of the all-time frontmen, right? I mean, if you think about it, this band is massive, and this band continues to be massive 20 years post American Idiot, 30 years post Dookie, which sounds funny. And the fact that they are as big as they are as a band still, because of, on the back of American Idiot, really. I think that's what pushed them to that level.
Yeah. Well, think about it. Most well-known, notable classic frontmen don't play an instrument. So he kind of broke through that barrier, right? I mean, think of all my favorite frontmen they're just singers. They do not hold an instrument in their hand.
Yeah, fair. This may be why. That may be why I was so blown away on the American Idiot tour, because he obviously still had the guitar, but he would sling that thing around his back and run around like a psycho. I'm with you, Anthony. Like, I grew up Eddie Vedder. Cobain's kind of the exception there, but I was like looking at I grew up in Portland, so I was looking at Dickie Barrett from the Bosstones and looking at Eddie and like these frontmen that were like singers. So yeah, maybe that kind of knocked Billy down a notch for me, or maybe I was just jealous because I sucked at guitar. But it is pretty wild. And the thing is, you like hindsight 2020, like everyone talks about, like Basket Case, for instance. They talk about how progressive it was. It was about mental health. And oh my God, would we be having that we weren't having that conversation in 1994. Nobody was talking about fucking Basket Case as an advocate piece for teenage mental health. Like that is total revisionist history.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's very applicable. And maybe subconsciously we understood that as we were singing along about anxiety and, being stoned or whatever. But would we really be talking about that if they hadn't gotten to this crazy U2 arena rock level? I don't think so. I think we could all go back, but everything was there. And again, for my hindsight, going back through the catalog from between Dookie and American Idiot, his songwriting was just getting better and better. And he was doing what any natural songwriter would, is he was trying to push himself in with Warning and with some tracks that were off like Nimrod, Insomniac. And that you're not always going to land because his wheelhouse was, I'm sure that he thought, I can go write Basket Case or Welcome to Paradise 50 more times, but I want to try some other stuff. And then boom, he's like, all right, Cigarettes and Valentine's didn't work. I'm not feeling it. What happens? I can go back to the well, but I need something bigger and grander to inspire me. Well, fuck it. Like, you guys ever heard of Tommy or Quadrophenia or The Wall? You guys ever heard this band called Queen? You know what? I can go back to the well for go back to the dance with the girl, go dance with the girl that you brought. But he needed like that extra inspiration. And Cavallo, to your point, Anthony, I think one of the reasons that they went there is a level of familiarity with a producer when you work that much. And they can definitely tell when you're going through the motions. And, they know not just sound wise, but they're producing a band, speaking of mental health, almost as like a babysitter, a therapist, and an engineer and a sound producer. So I think that's what we got here. And it's funny, I never ever thought about the fact that American Idiot is just an hour-long Welcome to Paradise until literally today, when I was like prepping for the episode and walking my dog, and I was like, holy shit.
It's absolutely perfect. I didn't think of it till you said it tonight, and I'm like, fuck, I wish I'd come up with that myself. Like, it's perfect. You're right. That's exactly what it is. That was a 4.5, 5-minute song 30 years ago. Well, let's expand on that, but let's go really big room and, change the game a little bit for us as a band with this one song is now this whole, all these disenfranchised 17-year-olds,
Well, what's funny about the whole thing is you have clearly an intent to go big. Like, We Are the Waiting is that when they wrote that, they were like, yes, this is a song everyone's going to wave their fucking lighters at Gillette Stadium.
Yeah.
Like, yes, got it. But for every one of those, you got She's a Rebel, you got Let Her Bomb, you got St. Jimmy. Those three in particular could have fit on Insomniac and would not have been out of place.
So Let Her Bomb is maybe, I don't want to say favorite because I hate favorites, but as for up-tempo punk Green Day songs, Let Her Bomb I think is my favorite. That song is unbelievable.
Great song.
And that's the song that a band 10 years removed from Dookie could do when they went back to the well. That song, it actually epitomizes the point I was trying to make.
Throwback Green Day.
But with that level of maturity, throwback, 90s Green Day never would have thought to put that tag on the end of it. And that makes the entire song. That gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. When he gets to the She Said I Can't, and I'm just like, my hands are in the air. I'm crashing my car because I took them off the wheel. I'm like, every time. It's such a mature, yet just unbridled punk ending. Very mature, though, to such a ripper of a song.
Listening back, those three in particular, because I'll be honest with you, I hadn't listened to this album front to back, and I'm no bullshit, in 15 years, easily. I mean, I've heard all the singles and I've probably dabbled over the years, but front to back, in headphones, in the car, 15 years, and those stood out. I was like, shit, this wasn't just rock opera. This was callback shit to the golden era.
Well, that, and I think callback shit to stuff that they grew up with, right?
Yeah.
We grew up with Green Day. They grew up with The Who. They grew up with Led Zeppelin. They grew up with whatever bands in the 70s and 80s that were their inspiration, for especially the Who, I think, when it comes to this, because I listened to a lot of rock opera stuff around that time, and Tommy and Quadrophenia were fit that mold. But those weren't pop punk type bands, so they put their spin on it. Like, okay, we're gonna go grandiose rock opera, but we're gonna give you the Green Day spin, and you get that with Letterbomb. You get that, I think, with parts of Jesus of Suburbia, parts of Homecoming. I think What's Her Name is a Jimmy Eat World song, but that's just what I got when I listened to it. How about you guys?
I'd have to listen back to it.
It feels like a tag. I love the song, but it feels like it's an interest. The band admitted that they didn't know what the hell to do in the third act.
They didn't, yeah. And
it is interesting because I do love this album. Same, Anthony. I hadn't listened to this in maybe just about as long, front to back. If something grabs me, I tend to consume it like a psychopath and then just like move on. There's no like casual listening. But like for as much as I love Jesus of Suburbia, I've always felt how that Homecoming, the other suite that they had, was very disjointed. And it did not shock me to learn that it was the byproduct of all of them getting together and sharing little bits of songs that they'd written. Whereas you could tell that Jesus of Suburbia, despite all three having input, was like three band members in a room tearing through that thing and coming up with it organically. And then, so it's Homecoming. There's some brilliant parts, and I laugh every time Trey Cool starts singing. And then to go into What's Her Name is like I could see why you would say Jimmy Eat World, because yeah, it's an interesting feel or vibe for that record and for that band, at least up until the Green Day guitars and Billy Joe gets the Billy Joe voice going. But
there's some jangliness to it that I was like, ooh, this sounds like it could have been a lost Jimmy Eat World, 2004-ish song, after Bleed American.
Well, when I was listening through today, I was like, shit, like timing is everything with a lot of bands. Like, give me Novocaine. It reminded me of the Beatles, reminded me of some Beach Boys a little bit in there. And then I got to thinking, like, if they put this on Dookie, it'd be like, what the fuck is this? Insomniac,
Right.
What the fuck is this? This album was the perfect time for this, because there are examples of when bands, the album was right, but the time was wrong. Pinkerton. This is a touchy subject for Tony, but
here we go.
Pinkerton. When that shit dropped, I mean, I was fucking 12 or 13, so I don't really know, but like the narrative I've always heard is that shit sucked, and now it's well revered, And I almost
still sucks.
No, it doesn't.
Well,
so
it
Kevin,
doesn't.
We have a full episode of Blue Album versus Pinkerton, Tale of the Tape episode.
Yeah.
Pause this, go listen to it, enjoy yourself. Go listen to the albums back to back, enjoy it. Come back here.
Be happy that I wasn't on that, because blood would have been shed.
Well, so here's the thing. I didn't know it would be brought up tonight. And Anthony, I think it's episode 96. So let's see if my memory's right. I'll check in a second. And B, I'm the only one that rode for Blue. I think you and Nate both went Pinkerton, which fucking blows me away. Front to back Blue is better. I'm sorry. It is what it is.
All right,
I'm done.
let's clear the air. And I think I've come clean on this. I was half posturing for content. Blue blows it away. I mean, let's be honest. But Pinkerton has merit, and it was ahead of its time, and that's why in 2024 you have a lot of heads saying, "Hey, Pinkerton rules," and it does. I think it's good. It's quirky, but it doesn't fit what everyone expected, and that's why. And that's why the timing is so key. That's why Give Me Novocaine. You throw Give Me Novocaine on Nimrod. Maybe not Nimrod. Insomniac. Everybody like, what the fuck are these guys
that wouldn't
doing?
fit. Wouldn't have fit, and probably any of those three. Maybe Nimrod, but probably any of those three. It was episode 97. I was one off, but yeah.
Oh, redeem yourself.
You were posturing, and I appreciate that you finally came clean 140 episodes later, because Blue is way better.
I've come clean. It might have been an off mic. I didn't want to admit it to the world.
So for a music nerd, Weezer is credited as being the producers for Pinkerton, but there's an engineer credited, and it's one of the first credits that this guy has, and he would go on to be a Rob Cavallo level producer, and that's David Friedman. So he would go on to do like Flaming Lips and like all the OK Go stuff. Like, he's a hugely sought after producer for wild sounds, and that was his first like cutting his teeth. So that's why you get like,
that's cool,
those crazy drum sounds on Pinkerton and everything. but Weezer worked without a producer. The Blue album was Rick Ocasek, the car.
Yes, which
And
makes
he was
sense.
like, and he was like, okay, guys, get into my car.
Yeah,
And I will teach you how to
band.
make 2-minute and 45-second songs.
It's that slap still 30 years later. But we'll do that one next month.
It's not a fair argument because they're so different. It is.
It's true. It's true.
It's a fruitless. Somebody's just going to have to take the point of contrarian. So
yeah.
So what I compare those albums to, and we'll wrap the Weezer talk after this.
I know, right? How did this happen?
It's Legend of Zelda and then The Adventures of Link. It's the same thing. And anyone that says Adventures of Link is, I don't know, they're wrong. But they're both great in their own way.
I'm gonna keep your Zelda. Your Zelda
is Hurley Ocarina of Time.
No, because Ocarina of Time is really good. But like A Link to the Past, which came out on Super Nintendo after, and now I'm gonna be really nerdy, and that is the best Zelda game, right? Probably. So
is that the Green Album?
It isn't, because Blue is better than the Green Album. So this is where it falls apart. And if you come for the Green Day, stay for the random Legend of Zelda analogies with Weezer.
Come for the Green Day, walk out during Weezer's set. Actually, I did see the Fenway show with Weezer and Green Day
together. Nice.
The Fall Out Boy canceled because of COVID.
The trilogy one, yeah.
And it was Green Day was amazing again. Weezer blew me away. It was the first time I ever saw Rivers not be a weirdo.
Amazing.
It was like his mullet mustache phase, and he was like rock starring it up, and I was like, wow, who gave that guy some coke? This is super fun.
That's all he needed. Or he was like, I'm going on stage with the same stage as Billy Joe tonight. I gotta bring it. Right?
Yeah.
There you go. Bringing it back to Green Day. Gotta go hard tonight, because they're gonna put the show on, so I gotta put the show on too. Yep.
So we're getting into tracks now. The same reason that I really don't love Holiday is kind of the same reason that I shouldn't love Boulevard of Broken Dreams. And that's another one that is so remarkably simple, yet the production techniques and tricks on it are so good. And that's where Billy Joe starts getting into like some true pop tricks with the ahs and some of that stuff. And speaking of Weezer, you had the guitar echoing melodies and things like that. And that was also just as overplayed on the radio. I don't know why. I have such a soft spot for that song. I just find it amazing. And again, it does have slight chord change for the outro, but just the band rocking out, no more vocals and everything. I don't know. I should be super sick of that song, and for some reason, I'm not.
It was everywhere.
Oh,
talk about Boulevard?
Unbearable.
Yeah,
Boulevard.
Boulevard. It wasn't
everywhere.
just on like our local rock radio station WCOY. It was on the Coast, which was MGX back then, or still MGX, but whatever they were back then. And it was it was on Q. It was on the pop station. It was
the Q.
everywhere because of how big that song was. It was absolutely fucking massive. And it was, you're right, it was them getting into their pop bag and putting out a song that was going to be everywhere. And I wonder if they knew that in the studio. Like, this one's gonna hit. This one's gonna be on every radio station across the country, essentially, except for like classic rock.
I think Cavallo and the band knew. I still, and this is me being a dick. I have no proof on that. I think that Cigarettes and Valentines was garbage, and the label, Cavallo, whoever, the band realized, and they were just like, okay, whatever. I think the second that they went back to the drawing board, I think everybody involved knew this was going to be like an Alanis Morissette Jagged Little Pill. Like, we have potentially every one of these songs could be a single. Let's map this out over the next 12 months. You know what? The industry's changing. Let's milk this cash cow one last time. And fuck, they sold like 30 million albums. That's
true.
Unheard of.
Yeah.
Like, for a rock band at that point, for really, unless you're in sync, I think, at that point. So I think they knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
As they brought in just about every one of these songs.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. I don't know when the timestamp of this is, but 23 million copies worldwide. And that was when Kazaa, I think Napster, I don't know if it was popping in 04. But
LimeWire, other ways of going, yeah.
LimeWire, yeah.
I mean, this album went fucking bananas.
Yeah, we're 7 times in America, 6 times in America platinum, but 23 million worldwide. And
Whew.
I mean, they were everywhere, right? They played everywhere. They didn't just stick to America. They played all overseas. They put that Bullet in the Bible out not long after, which is essentially that live, that 2004, 2005 touring cycle recorded all over the world, and they were the king. They were the biggest band in the world. Them and U2, I think, because U2 was pretty big at the time. They had put out How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb.
Was Linkin Park around this time too? Were they just
were.
absolutely slaying?
Meteora was 03.
Yeah, Meteor was 03.
It's really interesting because think about it. Like I think the industry knew that the CD sales were dying, but DVDs were still big because nobody had figured out how to rip a movie yet. Unless you're like, unless you were really willing to crash your computer and go like to the Pirate Bay or something like that. Like nobody. So think about it. Like all those big bands, Linkin Park, U2, Green Day, like they were immediately putting out DVDs because everybody's consuming those like they were CDs because they were stealing their music. They still had their disposable income and they're like, I'm still going to go into Strawberries and Bull Moose and FYE, whatever the hell. I still got to drop like $13-$20. That's kind of amazing. I never thought about that till right this second.
That's why we do this, man.
Goddamn industry.
Well, the thing is, like this album, think of how many label room execs have looked at the blueprint from this album, not Jay-Z's blueprint, the blueprint from this album, and have tried to like study the success of it. It's like a band 10 years removed from its heyday, right? So we're going to change the optics. We're going to put a little spin on it. We're going to come with the hits. It's very rare that a band, and it's funny, Tony, you say U2. They're the first band that I thought of to have a revival. Beautiful Day, right? That was How to Dismantle. Beautiful
that was All That You Can't Leave Behind, but yes, around that time.
Great album too.
But that was
Amazing
decade
album.
Plus. Like they had that pop, was it pop?
They've been around 25 years at that point.
Or discotheque or whatever it was. I don't know. That flopped, right? And
don't get me into YouTube stuff. I can go for a while. Yes, this is they probably had 3 or 4 of those. Like, okay, they were big, and then they went away a little bit, and then they were big again, and then they went away a little bit. YouTube's done that for 45 years, which is nuts.
But like, there's very few. I mean, I'm just spitballing here. Like, you know, them and fucking Kylie Minogue. I remember she had a fucking pop. You know. Madonna's had a couple of these cycles, but it's very rare. So there's boardrooms, you know, while they're taking a break from Bobby Shmurda dancing on the boardroom table. They're that's the
Kylie Minogue and Bobby Shmurda. Who had either of these coming up tonight?
I actually heard a reference to Bobby Shmurda dance. There's a viral clip. I think it's him of showing the label execs. It's the modern showcase, right? You dance on the boardroom table, but like this album's a case study.
Yeah, I mean Aerosmith comes to mind for me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even
with Get a Grip. God. Get a Grip was years removed.
Yeah. It's a good point. There isn't like a massively without like Blink again would fall into that category, but that's just because they got Tom back. So like without a gimmick, with a band just staying the course, it is pretty rare to have 2-3 different revivals. So that's remarkable.
Do you think this was a gimmick? Do you think American Idiot was a gimmick?
No. I'm saying the Blink thing, and I wouldn't call Tom coming back a gimmick, but like that's kind of a big
something newsworthy that brought people back under the tent.
Yeah. This has been Billy Joe, Mike, Trey Cool, like from the get-go. So it's pretty remarkable.
Well, this is the band that put out 1039 Smooth and then Kerplunk and then now you're getting American Idiot 25 years later. So it doesn't happen like that very often for bands where they can have a first act that was as big as it was, then a second act like this one. And I'm not sure if there's been a third act. Do we want to get into like where they're at today?
Anthony mentioned, some good stuff about Saviors and said he hadn't listened to it. I was like, I haven't either. So I actually listened to it. And then I watched an interview with them today about talking about Saviors and stuff that was good. I don't know. It is just as good. But I think Anthony nailed it. It's timing. It's all about timing. If I listen to this record at a different time or something, it sounds like American Idiot. And I would say the same thing about 21st Century. Like, you can't go back to the well so quick. And they definitely tried to do that. They caught lightning in a bottle. I think it was smart to wait 10 years to kind of revisit their roots with their new maturity. And Saviors, to me, it's not as just over the top as 21st. There are some really good tracks on it. But, it's really good. Green Day produced like American Idiot. I don't know.
Yep. I've listened to it a couple times, but it's been a little while since I put it on last. And I would agree, it's good, but it's not doing what American Idiot did for them. 10 years post Dookie. So I think they're in a weird spot as a band. I love Green Day. They're a huge part of me as a music fan because Dookie is the third album I ever owned. It's in that world, and I'll never get back the times that I was like, all right, I listened to Dookie. I'm gonna go backwards and find 1039 Smooth and Kerplunk as a 10, 11, 12-year-old and like just deep dive a band for the first time, and then for them to have another act like that and still be a part of something that I'm a fan of to this day. As a 40-year-old man, Green Day is a band that I will always hang my hat on as something that I've loved over time. So I just don't know if they're ever going to give us the big third act like this was their second act, I guess.
Yeah, and we I don't know if you saw this, Kevin, but a while ago we did a whole like the legacy of Green Day episode, and I haven't listened to it since it came out. I actually should have listened to it.
I was nervous about how viable this discussion would be based on seeing that episode, but
Oh, did you see it? You saw it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and like I'm trying to think back, and you can fact check me on this, but I think my punchline with Green Day is like, how else could this have gone? They got fucking massive on Dookie. There's no other path really, because once you reach Dookie stardom, you can't retread back. You're still going to play Tweeter Center. You're still going to play. So, like Uno Do Tre, I've never listened to him. I know the critics aren't great to him, and that Father of All Motherfuckers, like I know the critics weren't great to it, but Saviors was well received.
Yeah. Yeah, which came out earlier this year, right? Yeah. Like early in 2024.
What I will say about this is, one, and I wasn't trying to be a jerk when I said, oh my God, Warning only sold like 2.3 million copies or something. I mean, that's a lot of records.
That's a lot of records.
but it's also at a time when, like, keep in mind that, like, depending on your contract, you were making like 3 cents an album because all those people dancing on boardroom tables were actually taking the lion's share of your CD sales. But anyway, so regardless of that, I think what's most impressive when you can get a first, a second, a third, however many like big swings you get and you hit it out of the park. To me, it's that they have like retained some semblance of normal humanity. That is what is remarkable to me. Is like I watch them now in interviews, and I can't, they're not here. They're not in the next room, so I can't vouch for how
actually
they are.
They're in the waiting room. I'm going to bring them in right now.
Oh, surprise! But it's the fact that, I don't know that none of us will ever know what it's like to sell a bajillion records, go to Woodstock, have a mud fight, just be the craziest, no expectations trio punk band, and then get to this level. So kudos to them for that. And a lot of respect there, because a lot of other people would have fallen apart, or Billy Joe would have gone solo. That Rolling Stone cover would have been much more than just a photo shoot, So props to that.
Well, and Billy Joe almost did kind of fall apart after Dookie. Insomniac it's awesome, but it's out there, and it has some
Geek stink breath, man.
Yeah, it
Geek
has.
Stink breath.
Look at some of the live footage of them from that time. He is out of his mind. So the fact that he's still here putting out music, being America's front man for a pop punk band, like that's awesome, because it could have gone really bad, and it does go bad for a lot of bands that have that first act. So the fact that they're still, they put Warning out and had 2.3 million records sold, that's awesome. They continue to be a band and put out all this music for 40, almost 35 years now, whatever it is. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I always like playing the what if game. So they put out, I think, 7 or 8 albums since American Idiot. So what if American Idiot didn't happen and there was another dud in that spot in the 2004 dud? Like, I think the story is a little different for them. I really do. And their floor is very high. Their floor is super high in that no matter what, they're going to fill 10,000 cap. But, if they announced in 2025, we're doing eight arena shows, 8 Gillette Stadium, those are selling out all day.
Yeah, it's
now,
crazy.
If this album doesn't happen, I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? No, none of us know. But it makes you think.
Dookie and Good Riddance alone like Dookie is gonna get you people like my age, you guys' age, like they're gonna get 10,000. They're gonna get like another 4,000 to 5,000 soccer moms that sang that song at graduation and a funeral or somewhere, and they're gonna get
The
that in
Seinfeld
there.
finale. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that alone is like 1,000 times more than any band could ever possibly imagine. So they're not hurting. But you are
crazy.
right.
You're right.
It would be different. I don't think people would be having such distinct and even like visceral discussions, not at the level of Blue versus Pinkerton, but very raw discussions about the legacy of Green Day. Would anybody give a shit this much if they hadn't like completely shocked the world in 04 and dropped, a 20 million seller?
No, they wouldn't. I think we'd be happy about 30 years of Dookie. We might be doing an episode about 30 years of Dookie right now versus 20 years of American Idiot if that doesn't, they don't put another record like that out. And it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. There are 4 bands in history that have had the longevity and the couple of different like ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys that they had. And I'm here for it. I'm here for the next one.
You want to know what blew me away about the Civic Center show that we went to, Tony? Is not only did they have Dookie and then some hits on the next couple albums, but they played 7 tracks off American Idiot on that set list. If you go back and look at that set list, they only played like 2 off Dookie. They only played like 2 songs off every other album, and they did their fucking We Are the Champions cover. That whole show.
Mm-hmm.
So a band with a legacy album like Dookie drops a new record and plays almost the entire thing.
It's crazy.
And everybody's going nuts. Like, I just went and saw one of Taking Back Sunday, and I was like, play the hits, guys. It's wild to think that a band can do that. It's tough to pull off. So the videos for this, I want to get my horror movie thing in just because a stickler for this. But the videos for this had varying degrees of awesomeness. Samuel Bayer directed all of those videos. If you guys look him up, like legendary video director. 1 feature film to his name, and it was the 2010 remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh,
one of the worst movies if I ever saw this guy in the street, I would find a way to high five him for videos like Smells Like Teen Spirit and No Rain all the way through. And then I'm a lefty, so I'd probably high five him with my left hand and just give him a quick, weak sucker punch with my right for this garbage remake of an absolutely legendary film and character in Freddy Krueger.
Unnecessary remake, I would imagine, right? Why?
It was so bad. It was so bad.
I didn't watch, like, I did some studying up for this, but I didn't watch the videos. My favorite lore from this record, which I remember hearing about over the years, but do you remember hearing about the Dillinger 4 controversy? The band Dillinger 4?
No.
Double Whiskey, Coke No Ice song. They settled, the rumor is, allegedly, Green Day settled with Dillinger 4, melodic hardcore punk band, from the 90s. I don't know if they're still around, but they settled out of court because the American Idiot rips off Double Whiskey, Coke No Ice. And again, this is all like speculation, whatever, but I remember hearing that one of the dudes in that band runs a venue, and the money was the seed money for that came from the out of court settlement. So Billy Joe.
Nice.
So who knows? I mean, there's only so many notes. I'm not a musician, Kevin, but there's only so many notes. There's only so many chords.
Alleged. Yes.
It's fair, but American Idiot. I mean, we could go another hour talking about. There's a lot of quote unquote inspiration in there, but yes, I can land on both sides of that argument. There are only so many chords and notes and things. And inspiration versus, ripping somebody off, fine line as well. But good for that guy and his club.
Yeah, no, and it was a music club, Twan?
Yeah, it's a venue. I don't know where it is, but Dillinger 4's great. Like I've enjoyed them over the years, right? But yeah, apparently Green Day pulled some inspiration there.
Either pulled some inspiration or had no fucking clue because it's a pretty not basic, but a riff that could come up with a riff that there's riffs all over Green Day's catalog that could have sounded like somebody else's riffs, right? So it's all pretty power chordy in that world early on, and similar to Blink, right?
So 20 years removed. My punchline is great album. I like I said, it's been 15 years since I've listened to it. I think I may enjoy it more now than back then, because it's not oversaturated now. It's on my terms. It's not everywhere on the radio, and I think when you listen to it as a cohesive unit and understand context of the time, as we always say, I'm in. It's a good album. Great album. It's a great album. Worse albums have sold more, right?
Yes.
Oh God.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll continue. Well, maybe not continue to.
I would say for me, there's a lot of albums that I remember how they made me feel, whether it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I can listen to them and appreciate them. They don't still make me feel like that because I've grown or whatever. It was just a moment in time. To go back to the timing thing, this one, I put it on. It had been a minute. And like I said, there were like Jesus is Suburbia, those 3 hits to start Jesus is Suburbia. I'm just like, fucking yes. I'm still pumped. I still love Wake Me Up When September. And it gets to, Letter Bomb into, September. I'm just, like I said, I'm crashing my car. It still makes me feel like that. So yeah, this to me, it's a great fucking record.
There's something to be said for a band putting out an album that you vibed with in your 20s, that you can still vibe with in your 40s, and is still kind of on the pulse of what's happening 20 years later. So really amazing stuff from an all-time band that I think all three of us can say we grew up with and love and continue to love, and probably will till we're done listening to music and sleeping.
Kevin, I'll say this. Great guests. You vibed great with us. We'll definitely have you back. We'll pick another album. Yeah. I mean, we'll have you. If you want to come, it's up to you. But
I love this. I love you guys. I love the show. And I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass because Tony's still recording. I've listened to some. I mean, I don't know if you passed it along. You guys did the Jimmy Eat World thing. I hadn't listened to that record since it came out. And I went for a run and goosebumps, pump in my fist, like, holy fuck, forgot. And a lot of good memories came back. I'll be like, this era is when Head Start was recording a ton too. So like, just reminding me of like conversations with like John Wyman, with Riccatelli, all the music and stuff coming out. So I've been in my car more than a handful of times yelling at you guys because I'm not involved in the conversation. So thank you for letting me actually be a part of the conversation.
I'm all in on having you back, Kevin. I mean, this was something that we wanted to do for a while, and the fact that we were able to do it tonight and have you, give us your spin on whatever album we were talking about this week, and that happened to be American Idiot. I'm happy that it happened, man.
Nice.
I do have an idea. Tail of the Tape Part 2, Hurley versus Maladroit.
Oh God.
Yeah. Maladroit has Doug Nose on it, right?
I don't. You know what? You would have to do green. You have to do Green and Maladroit.
Yeah.
Because they were recording those at the same time. And that's when they had that. Wow. I don't know if you guys remember. You guys, this is me dating myself because I would have been like 20. But they had a website and they were releasing demos every day they were releasing actual studio session of all those songs and everything. So I was me and I think the trombone player from my first band. We were living together every night. We were at his computer because I was too fucking poor to have a computer, just waiting. When is Weezer going to upload their new like studio session? Instrumentals and things that would become. But I'd love to talk shop on those because Kasich came back for Green. So you get those weird little fucking tiny guitar sounds. And then boom, Maladroit, guitar porn.
So this is me not being a contrarian, but just I remember both records and I like Maladroit more, which is weird because I like Blue more. So yeah, hey, maybe we have to do that.
Are we recording that episode right now? I think
might be. Yeah. What is Kevin? You got another hour in you? Let's go.
I'm here. I'm set up. That's the beauty of actually having a studio. I'm one plug away from always being ready to podcast.
I like that. Yes, I like that a lot. I'm not. I'm usually off campus at work, but we made it happen tonight, even though I was late getting here. And we appreciate you, Kevin. And go check out Speak All Evil. I got it right that time, I think. Right? Yes. Go check that out. Follow that, and we'll do this again.
Sick.
Yeah, hit us with another album down the road, Kevin. Appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. See you guys.
All right, guys.
Peace, potheads. I haven't said that in so long. Thank you for listening to Podioslave. We are at Podioslave on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the places that you can find us on social media. Facebook, Podioslave Podcast. YouTube, Podioslave Podcast there. Email us at podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. And hey, if you want to become a supporter, click on the link at the bottom of the episode and give us $1, give us $5. It keeps the lights on, keeps us going. We really appreciate that stuff. Thank you.